What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel for another video, in which I will be presenting a theory I have about The Mandalorian Season 2, which could spell trouble for Mando and the child. So, over the last couple of weeks, I've been rewatching Season 1 of The Mandalorian for a nice little refresh before Season 2 begins a few days from now, and I've obviously seen all of this before, so there's not really any surprises or new revelations to be made, but there is something that happens in Episode 7 that really jumped out at me. And that is when the child uses Force Heal on Greef Karga after they're attacked by those giant bat-like creatures on Navarro. Now, it's not the performance of this ability itself that I'm focusing on here, it's the implications that this ability might have for the child that really matters. So based on everything we know about the Star Wars universe, taking every character into account within the new Disney canon, there have only been 3 characters who have displayed the knowledge and ability to use Force Heal. 4 if we include Darth Plagueis, who was obviously said to have been able to save people from death. And based on who those characters were outside of the child, and considering the context around their use of this ability, I have come to wonder, is Force Heal actually a dark side power? Now, the first reaction to this, or at least my initial instinct, is to say no. That's obviously not true because Rey, who essentially became the embodiment of a true Jedi, used it. Ben Solo was only able to use it once he returned to the light, and Baby Yoda of course used it to save a man who, from his perspective, is a good guy. And then on top of that, the use of the ability is an extremely selfless act in which the conductor of the power gives some of their life force to heal another, or even in the case of Ben Solo, gives their whole life to save someone else. The act in itself is the ultimate show of compassion, and on the surface, represents an individual who is willing to put themselves at the mercy of the Force for the greater good, or for the survival of another being, who they feel is worth them giving up some or all of their energy to save. But let's take a closer look at what all of that really means. The Jedi at their core are not supposed to mourn those who die. They're taught to accept death as a natural part of life, to live their lives in accordance with where the Force guides them, and then when their time comes to embrace their own transcendence as they become a part of the Force itself. Death is not meant to be feared, nor to be undone by another being who cared for them, at least not according to the Jedi and their teachings. On the other hand, the Sith, who are committed to the dark side of the Force, passionately pursue immortality, and Darth Plagueis, one of the most powerful Sith Lords in history and the master of Darth Sidious, was able to save the ones he cared about from dying. Anakin literally turns to the dark side in the hopes that he can learn how to use that power, and Palpatine then goes on to find a way to resurrect himself through essence transfer, which is a different ability than Force Heal, but it's relatively similar if we think about the way it's used. There's different purposes behind the two, of course, but both do include the transfer of one's Force energy from one body to another. In Legends, Force Heal was actually known as Dark Transfer, and was used primarily by dark side Force users to bring their allies back to life, and for some to even revive themselves. So let's now address in greater detail why Rey and Ben were able to use this power as light side Force users, as Jedi who were, at the time that they used the power, acting on selfless instincts. Reason number 1 is the Force Dyad, but that doesn't really tell the full story. The Dyad is defined as a pairing of 2 Force-sensitive beings which made them one in the Force. As Palpatine alludes to in the movie, it's a power as strong as life itself, and the individuals who formed a Dyad shared a connection that transcended space and time. This means that they can interact with one another even when they're separated by great distances, they can communicate with one another across space, feel each other's emotions, see each other's minds, and it's widely theorized that as long as one is alive, the other is never truly gone. And thanks to a new book called the Star Wars book, we now also know that individuals who formed a dyad were able to heal one another by giving some of their life force to the other, but that does not necessarily mean they automatically know how to use it without first learning how to tap into the ability, nor does it mean they're able to use this power solely because of their bond. And that should be pretty clear considering Rey also used it on that serpent earlier in the Rise of Skywalker. So how do I explain the two of them using Force Heal while also considering it a dark side power? Well, Ben Solo spent 7 years of his life as Kylo Ren, a dark side Force user, which would have given him plenty of time to learn about such abilities and how to channel them. On the other hand, Rey, who has never committed herself to the dark side, frequently taps into her dark tendencies, which was probably her greatest flaw throughout all 3 of these movies. But the Rise of Skywalker novel does say that Ben Solo had not previously been aware of how to use this power, rather he was simply acting on pure instinct and emotion. So how I would justify this is that Rey is actually the one who learns to use this power through the dark side, because as we saw throughout this trilogy, Rey is a Jedi who truly does not fear the dark side. In fact, she doesn't even seem to differentiate between dark and light. She simply chooses to use her power for good. Her intentions are usually in the right place, but she does not hesitate to channel the dark side of the Force for her own benefit or for the benefit of others. So what I propose happened with Ben Solo, and this is why I brought up the Force Dyad in the first place, is that this is how he was able to use Force Heal. Just as Rey had gained access to his power in The Force Awakens, he subconsciously drew this ability from Rey when he needed it. So again, the Force Dyad did give him the knowledge to use this power, but the reason it works is not because of their bond. It's simply because they both instinctively channel the dark side, just like Darth Plagueis, and as I'm alluding to here, just like Baby Yoda or the child. And coming back to the child now, let's not forget that we also saw him force choke Cara Dune, which is a dark side power fueled by anger and or hatred. So we can at the very least say definitively that the child does carry some dark side tendencies, even if he doesn't realize what he is doing. And if someone doesn't help him to realize this and control his anger, we could see things take a very dark turn. And this could be where the Jedi that Mando's searching for in Season 2 really come into play. Perhaps they're more important to the child than we realize right now, and they will actually save him, not from Moff Gideon, but from himself. So what do you guys think about this theory? I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the video here, so let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like to support the channel, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.